The following story is about a real homicide investigation with graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised. Previously on The Murder Mind.
Never had a relationship with a woman in Atlanta. Never did that.
What he's telling me right now is a big shovel full of crap. We both felt very sure that Lee Hines was responsible for the murder of my victim, LaCharity Gaines, but that he was so cool and calculated that this is gonna be a tough case. I'm not gonna get a confession.
The only thing that he had told me was that it was personal, it wasn't very heavy.
She is afraid of this man. She's not making this up. They have located the boxes of evidence collected at my victim's house. All of a sudden, like a beacon of light from heaven, I see a bag located inside this box of evidence. What I'm seeing could turn this case around right now. So I finally received this box of evidence from 7 years ago. One thing I realized is that none of this evidence has been tested, so I have no idea what I'm looking for. I'm looking through the list of items that were collected. What I didn't see was anything from the crime lab. No forensic testing, no fingerprints, no hair analysis, no DNA, no anything, no fingernails. So I was so curious, almost like a kid waking up on Christmas Day, opening his presents under the tree. As I'm going through this box of evidence that contains individual bags of evidence, I see labels that say photographs. I see labels that say latent prints. Then I see a bag that's tucked in the corner of the box and I see hair written on it. As I'm sitting there considering what exactly this hair means, it hit me. I remember reading the report that at an autopsy of my victim, they recovered a clump of hair from her hand in a grip, a death grip. This particular piece of evidence could be the key to identifying LaCharity's killer. I've had cases in the past, especially women that at autopsy found hairs in their hands. In many of those cases, the hair actually belonged to the victim. As they were fixing their hair, pieces of hair got caught either under their fingernail or somewhere tucked in the crease of their hand. In this particular case, this is a clump of hair. When I read the autopsy results, it said hairs found in victim's hand. It didn't really draw my attention until I found this evidence bag. The actual technician that bagged this hair at autopsy actually wrote on the bag, clump of hair found in victim's hand. That changes things. And I'm thinking, I have to run a scenario through my head. This victim is running, she's stabbed in the back. She likely fought this killer before that ever happened, and very well could have reached out and grabbed this killer's hair, and when her hands separated, that clump of hair remained in her hand, and she falls down after being stabbed in the back, and that hair remained in her hand. This victim very well, in the dying throes of her last minutes on earth, reached out and preserved evidence of who this killer is. This is the light bulb moment for every detective where you realize you're holding probably the one piece of evidence that scientifically is going to connect the victim to the killer. This was the greatest moment in this entire investigation. And this very well may be Lee "Nitty" Hines. Now I have to wonder, why was this evidence never tested 7 years ago? As I start to think back, many factors I have to consider. This detective was old school. Back then, DNA was kind of in its infancy. It wasn't really something that the old school detectives understood. This detective was also getting close to retirement. And most importantly, Lee Hines was actually arrested for this case, and the case was dismissed in municipal court. In the early 2000s, Atlanta was dealing with an influx and a multitude of homicides, more so than in 2010. So the detectives had their work cut out for them, and somehow after Lee Hines got released and this case was dismissed in municipal court, This case went sideways. Likely this detective was catching multiple cases and this evidence simply was never tested and it was somewhat forgotten about, just like this case. But thank God I got a call from this detective in NYPD that breathed fire into this case. And here I am 7 years later holding that one piece of evidence that could bring this case home. So right now, knowing I'm holding a piece of evidence in my hand that can show a jury potentially that Lee Hines, linked through DNA, is the killer, I got to get this evidence over to the crime lab. Typically, I would have this evidence moved to our evidence transportation storage facility where it would sit for a day and then someone would come and pick it up. I wasn't having it. I bag tagged and reintroduced this evidence into the system and drove it personally to the crime lab immediately on this same day. 40 minutes later, I'm actually handing this evidence over to an intake officer at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's crime lab. I personally delivered this evidence and I asked them to put a rush on it. I needed to know ASAP who this hair belonged to, and if it in fact was Lee Hines, this case would be closed soon. So now I got to get on the phone with my de facto partner over at NYPD to let him know this newly discovered evidence. I get on the phone, I call Detective Wilkowski, and in an excited tone, I'm like, Eddie, I've got some great news to share with you. And Eddie says to me, that's great, Vince. I have some great news to share with you as well. And before I can say anything, Detective Wilkowski shares with me that Lee Hines actually was arrested by NYPD right outside of his home for possessing a firearm. And if anybody knows anything about the state of New York, they're serious about possessing firearms. It's a Class A felony in New York, and Lee Hines was taken into custody. Detective Wilkowski shares with me that Lee Hines was actually transferred to Rikers Island, waiting to be tried for this new gun charge. Based on his history, he got no bond, and that he was gonna sit there, but he shared something that was very interesting. While Lee Hines was actually at Rikers Island, they shook down his cell and they realized that Lee Hines was constructing weapons while incarcerated at Rikers and caught another charge. So now he's got two charges. He's got possession of the weapon when he was in front of his house, and now he's got constructing contraband weapons while incarcerated at a correctional facility. So he's got a lot of charges. No bond. Lee Hines is on ice. That's great. I've got evidence waiting to be tested. Lee Hines is off the streets. That satisfies Eddie's concern that he may hurt somebody else as well as mine. In essence, Lee Hines has just bought us more time by being Lee Hines, by getting arrested. So this information that Detective Wilkowski just gave me is great. Now that I know that Nitty is on ice, there is no rush. I've got this evidence, it's great evidence, and I want to make sure that they take their time getting to it and doing it the right way. In the meantime, I'm still going through this box of evidence and I'm looking for other things. And I realize that there's another piece of evidence that I think is pretty good. I remember where they found my victim's car. It was located at a bus station in North Carolina. Feeling that Nitty likely took the victim's car after he killed her and dumped it and then took a bus to New York, they had the local police in North Carolina process that vehicle. And now as I look into this box of evidence, I see where they lifted prints from an actual CD found inside of the vehicle. This was good evidence. So two big pieces of evidence right now. The clump of hair found in my victim's hand and this CD. So right now, I'm sending this off. Who knows when the results will come back, but this buys me time. So some time goes by and I get a call from Detective Wilkowski to follow up on the charges that Nitty got up in New York. I learned that Nitty actually got convicted of not just the handgun charge, but also the constructing weapons while incarcerated charge, and got a total of 3+ years. So now I know Lee Hines is not going anywhere for the next at least 36 months. This is great. I called the crime lab up after that and I'm like, take your time. It's okay, test the hairs, but in the meantime, I'm still trying to find witnesses. I'm still looking for other evidence to really make this case airtight, but at the same time, I'm working a multitude of hot and cold cases. So as these things go in the world of a homicide detective, this is great news. The main thing is, Nitty is off the streets. He's not hurting anybody, and I've got a lot of time to really tighten this case up. So let's step into a time machine and travel into the future. It's now 2013. In the last 3 years, I've worked no less than 50 homicides. Cold cases, hot cases, warm cases. You name it, I've been busy. The crime lab, knowing there was no rush on the evidence I submitted, still hasn't gotten to this evidence yet. This is no surprise to me. At that time, the state of Georgia was going through a backlog of DNA cases, rape kits especially. Therefore, many other cases got put on the back burner. And since I didn't put a rush on my case went to the back of the line. But I get another call. It's Detective Wilkowski again. It's fall of 2013, and he's calling me to let me know that Nitty is getting close to completing his sentence for the gun charge in New York and may be released in the next few months. So now, as I check to see that evidence still has not been tested, I've got to make a decision. I can't let this guy out of jail roaming the streets. The streets in New York City, and presumably any other city Nitty would have traveled to, have been safe for the last 3 years, but things are about to change. I've got to make a decision. It's a tough one. I looked at the evidence of what I've had so far, and I got to make a decision at this point in the fall of 2013. Do I have enough if I went to trial to get a conviction, even without the test results? And as I evaluated all the evidence, I realized that I did. It was time to make a move. So I make the decision at that point to get an arrest warrant for Lee Hines for the murder of LaCharity Gaines. A judge signs it, it's entered into the system. I fax a copy over to Detective Wilkowski and I tell him, look, Lee Hines has to come to Georgia. They put a hold on him. As soon as his sentence was completed, the Fulton County Sheriff's Department flew to New York City and transported Nitty back to our jurisdiction and put him in the Fulton County Jail. I got a court order to get him out of jail and bring him to my office as soon as he got into town. Nitty was transported from the Fulton County Jail to my office. When they brought Nitty into the interview room at Homicide headquarters, and I tell them who I was, this is the first time Nitty and I actually saw each other in person. The only other encounter is when we were on the phone, and if you recall, he had the Reverend on the phone call with us. He remembered speaking to me on the phone years ago. He remembered my voice, he remembered my name, wondered why he was there. I explained to him he was under arrest for the murder of LaCharity Gaines. When I first met Lee Hines, I really was confused. I couldn't understand, based on the presentation of what I'm seeing, how he exerted that much control over these women. It wasn't because of his presence, so he had to be a smooth talker. I got a taste of that on the phone with him, and I got a taste of that by interviewing the women who were in relationships with him, and they explained how he used words to control them, manipulation, guilt, and gaslighting. And I knew at that point that he's someone who takes advantage of people. He finds their weaknesses and exploits them. But now he's sitting across the table from someone who's trained in the art of interrogation. I want to try to interview him again, but being that he's in custody, I have to read him his rights. As soon as I started reading him his Miranda rights, he interrupted me and said, no, I want a lawyer. That was no surprise to me. Lee Hines has always felt like he's been in control. He certainly feels like he controls women, which he actually did. And it was my feeling and belief that when I was speaking to him on the phone 3 years earlier, with his Reverend on the line, he felt like he was in control. And at this point, face to face, he wouldn't be able to control an actual interrogation where I'm going to be hitting him with facts. So his only out was to lawyer up, because he couldn't handle that heat. It didn't surprise me one bit. So although Lee Hines won't speak to me without an attorney, I've got an ace up my sleeve. I've got a court order to take head hairs, to actually swab his mouth for DNA, and to actually take palm prints. And let's go through that. Why is that? Well, if you think back, When my victim's car was found at the bus station in North Carolina, they processed that car for evidence. And in that box of evidence that I had discovered years later, there was actually a palm print that they lifted from the cover of a CD case found within the car. The DNA, the swab that I'm going to take from Nitty's mouth, is because of the hair that was found in the victim's hands with roots attached. That means there's nuclear DNA in those hairs, and if they can extract that DNA, they can compare it to the swab I'm going to get from Nitty's mouth. And then finally, the 25 hairs that I have authorized to take by court order in my hand, they're going to compare the hair from Nitty's head to the actual hair. And let's add all of that up. If it all makes sense, the hairs would match, the DNA from the roots in the clump of hair in my victim's hand matches DNA to Lee Hines, and then finally, if Lee Hines' palm prints that I'm about to take match the palm print on the CD cover, this is a wrap. This is exactly what a jury needs to hear to convict this man. So while I'm waiting for the forensics to get back on this case, I still want more information. I'm not done investigating. Nitty is in our jail. I know that these guys use the phone, and there's a system in place where those phone calls are recorded. So I decided to start listening in on the phone calls of Lee Hines. I've done this many times in the past on many other cases, and I have never been surprised at the amount of information that I get by listening into these calls. And what's astonishing is that there's a recording before they make the call, letting the inmate know that these calls are recorded.
This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
Nevertheless, these guys have diarrhea of the mouth, and they continue to talk. And so many times, I've actually even heard a defendant admit to the crime. For those calls where something is said that's incriminating, that is absolutely admissible in court. And that has been used many times in other cases where we use the inmate, the defendant's own words for a jury to hear. So now I'm tuned in. I want to know not only who Lee Hines is talking to, but most importantly, I want to know what he's saying. And if he's saying anything about this case, I'm taking that recording and I'm putting that into evidence, and that's going to be heard by a jury.
Hello, this is a free call from an inmate at Fulton County Jail.
I started to listen to Lee Hines' phone calls, and I was shocked at what I started to hear.
Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
So you are actually going to hear the recordings of the conversations Nitty was having with his girlfriend, Maria. And if you recall, Maria is the woman, the Puerto Rican woman back in New York City, who I confronted on her doorstep and went berserk on me and Detective Wilkowski. She's also the one who came back out and handed me the phone to talk to Nitty. So you will actually hear these recordings, and you'll get to hear the crazy stuff coming out of Nitty's mouth. And as always, we've altered Maria's voice to protect her identity.
How are you? Are you okay? I've been dying to talk to you, man.
3 fights later, I'm good.
So one of the first things I hear Nitty tell Maria is how he's been in so many fights, 3 to be exact.
3 fights later, babe?
Yep.
Oh my God, man.
So now, having talked to Nitty on the phone and actually meeting him, I have my own opinion. In my mind, Nitty couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag, but he's bolstering his position in the Fulton County Jail to his girlfriend. And in my mind, this is just another form of control.
Oh boy, you need to call Mom so you get off the phone with me.
Wow, what did you tell her?
I didn't tell her anything. She called me this morning because I've been talking to the lady from the public defender's office.
What's interesting is I start to listen to this conversation between Nitty and Maria. Nitty's telling her about what's going on, how he made it back from New York to Atlanta, and I can hear that Maria is clearly agitated with the whole situation.
I gave her all your information yesterday as far as the indictment number and all that because they say there's no way you could be indicted if you was not in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm telling her he was indicted, man. Like, what the f***? And give me the information Monday and let me know what's happening. Why are you there? If you haven't been indicted, then you don't need to be there. Like, this is what me and Mom are trying to figure out. It don't make no sense what the f***. You're there, but you're just sitting down. If they were ready for you, would have been in court already. It just don't make no sense, everything that's happening. You can't be indicted in a city or in a town when you're not there and you're somewhere else doing incarceration time. It don't make any sense.
She can't understand how in the world that we picked Nitty out of the blue and charge him with murder. He's under indictment. He's transported from New York City to the city of Atlanta, put in jail, charged with murder. And for the life of her, she can't understand that.
It's a paper indictment. That means that the DA just took it to 26 people, people that's law-abiding citizens, that's regular people, and it's a paper indictment. It's not saying that I'm guilty. It's just saying that they got enough, the DA presented enough evidence to go proceed with the case.
Yeah, because the lady told me to. The only way they could indict you if you was doing time in New York and they indicted you in Georgia without you being there was if they have physical evidence against you. You know what I'm saying? I don't have against him. Nothing.
She is so supportive of this guy that she thinks that the entire world is picking on her boyfriend, Nitty, that he had absolutely nothing to do with this. This woman is absolutely brainwashed.
Yo, listen, you could call my mom's, right? But you got to make sure that she picks up first before you click back over.
I know what you're saying.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, call her right quick.
Nitty does something that a lot of inmates do. He asked Maria to do a three-way call. And the reason they do that is that call is not going to be registered on Nitty's account. The only call that's going to be registered is the call to the person that he's speaking to. So then Maria agrees to do a three-way call to Nitty's mom.
So you got to click over, call her, wait till she pick up, then click back over.
So Nitty has this conversation with his mom. You're going to actually hear the audio, and like we always do, we've altered her voice to also protect her identity.
I sent you a letter. Did you get it?
No, it'll probably come today in the mail.
So, yeah, I sent that Monday, both of y'all letter and all that. But these up here, yo, it's a bunch of bull going on. Like, they got me indicted on a paper indictment for a little evidence of whatever he so-called got. Like, he did that without having my lawyer present or representation for me present.
Okay, have you found a way to get around that?
That's state law down here. Number two is, I don't have no court date. They're not gonna see me until 3 weeks down the road. They said if I'm indicted, that the judge won't even consider seeing me until 3 weeks. You know how these is, man. Like, you know, they don't like New Yorkers, so I already done pounced out like 3 different people already.
Yeah, but see, that's my problem with you. No, Lee, you always do this. You dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Remember, you getting ready to go to trial for your life, and you need to be focused on good behavior and everything else, but you're only showing them anger, and that's the key card they're going to use against you.
Nitty's mom does what moms do. She's offering motherly advice. Nitty's telling her about the fights he's been in.
Listen, this is what they doing. I came in here, the officers and them, they don't like New Yorkers, man. They hate New Yorkers. When I came in, the announced to the dome, yeah, we got murderer, man. He done killed one of ours. That's what he did. So when you do that and you put me in a cage full of these dudes gonna come, and this is word to grandma's grave, man. I did not say nothing to not one person.
But then what, when he did that, what the CO did that, so who can you talk to help you?
They all together. You can't talk to nobody.
Yeah, but the law is the law, Lee. I don't care who law is. The law is the law. There's got to be something you can do.
Right. Listen, I wrote a grievance already. I wrote a grievance in to the sergeant lady and all that.
You knew that when you went to Atlanta, their laws was different from ours. We have laws of freedom. Them people are nothing like ours. That's that old dirty South. You know what I'm saying? They not New York, so of course they live totally different than we do. You gotta learn that these are the things you have to do. You have to stay to yourself and try to find out through research who can you talk to, because if this is what's going on, you don't have a chance in hell.
Nitty's mom tells him, keep your head down, do the right thing, keep your nose clean, mind your business, and trust God. That's what a mother should do, and that's what she's doing.
You gotta find a way to separate yourself away from the problems. You gotta take the negative and make it a positive.
I am, Mom.
Mom is giving Nitty good advice. Had he only taken that from the beginning, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So at some point in the conversation, Nitty starts telling Maria about the evidence against him, and then something catches my ear.
I'm not even worried about it. Like, the only thing that they had against me, the only thing that they got against me is the about the car, me being in the car. That's all they got. Like, I'm not even worried about nothing else.
I actually hear Nitty tell Maria, the only thing they have on me is that I was actually in that girl's car. That's it. Now that's huge. This is coming from a guy, when I interviewed him, didn't know the victim, was never living with her, has never been in her car, doesn't know her name, doesn't know her nickname Muffin, knows nothing about her. But here I am listening to a conversation where he admits that he was in her car. And remember, her car was found at a bus station in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her car missing the day she goes missing, presumably taken by Nitty after he kills her to drive to North Carolina, catch a bus back to New York City. This was absolutely huge. I knew that that was one piece of evidence that the jury is going to get to hear that conclusively puts him in the car. And guess what? I don't even have the forensics back yet. Like any good plan, sometimes doesn't quite go the way you think it would. Little did I know that Nitty would try to do something that could destroy this entire investigation. And I'm gonna tell you all about that in the next episode. Coming up on The Murder Mind.
And your family at that bitch hard body, full force.
He knows that these women who he's abused in the past is gonna be part of his downfall, and he needs to silence them.
He's done. My cousin's gonna party tested.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please hit the like button and subscribe. And please check me out on other social media platforms, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Lastly, don't forget to come back for the next episode. You won't want to miss it.